Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this one we're going over some of my favorite plays for the Monday night slate on Draftkings. It's a pretty fun slate, so I am looking forward to it. We'll go over some strategy and tips for this as well, then we can build a generic lineup together just so you guys can see what roster construction should look like. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. I will be here all season for NFL to help you guys out as much as I can. And I'd recommend hitting that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the new content. And if you're interested in the spreadsheet that's behind me, this is available for you guys if you want access to it. Links in the description below for my Patreon. It's all color coded to help you. It's to help reduce your research time. It's got all the info you need on here. The matchup info, the player info, the Vegas totals, the QB stats, the defense versus position stats, projections, rankings, values, a cheat sheet. And it's got wide receiver versus cornerback data, which I know everyone loves, and that's all color-coded. And we have tight end versus safety data, offensive line versus defensive line data. So it's got all that on there. It's all in one spot, so you don't have to have 50 tabs open at once to just annoy the heck out of you, and then you get confused, and you get frustrated because you got so many things to look at. It's all in one spot. It's here to help you and reduce your research time. And anyway, that's enough plugging. Let's get into the Monday slate. Let me head over to Draftkings. I think that's set up how we want it. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to start off with the quarterback position, obviously. So really, there's only two options, in my opinion, that you want to play at quarterback on this slate. It's either going to be Watson or Breeze, and I side with Watson over Breeze due to the lack of run game the Texans will have, since Duke Johnson's going to be the RB1, and then Carlos Hyde will be in the mix as well. Plus, this game is going to be a shootout with a 52.5-point Vegas total, which is the highest of the entire week. The Texans are 6.5-point dogs, which means they're going to be in catch-up mode, trying to keep pace with this high-flying Saints offense. And Watson is definitely capable of putting up huge fantasy games. We've seen him do it before, and he's definitely capable of it. He's got the number one wide receiver in the league in DeAndre Hopkins, and he's got a speedy Will Fuller opposite of him. The Saints were 22nd DVOA versus the pass last season and allowed over 23 DraftKings points per game to the position. And plus, he has rushing upside, which Breeze does not outside of QB sneaks near the goal line. So I definitely like Deshaun Watson. No problems with him whatsoever. And then we'll talk about Drew Brees next. He's 6,200. And on the other side, like I said, other side of this game, Drew Brees, he comes in at a slight discount to Watson, which may be valuable on a small slate like this. Every dollar kind of counts. The Saints have the more established and prolific offense with elite weapons to spread the ball around to. We got Kamara, Michael Thomas, and some other options as well. The only downside here is that they are not afraid to run the ball, and they will do that at will if given the opportunity. The Texans were 19th DVOA versus the pass last season and gave up 19 points per game to the position, so a little bit stiffer compared to the Saints versus the quarterback position, but still. Breeze and the Saints play much better at home in the Dome, and he's your pivot off of Watson in the clear number 2 on the slate. And that's not to say he's far away from Watson as the number 1, as I have them projected nearly the same. I think it's like maybe a point difference, but I just think game flow leads to a better fantasy day for Watson, especially if they are down and they're going to have to throw. So let's build this lineup together. So at the quarterback position, we're going to plug in Watson for now, and then we'll move on to the running back position, which is obviously going to start with Alvin Kamara. So basically, make sure he's in your lineups on Monday, as he's a near lock given how substantial the drop-off is after Kamara in the RB group here. I mean, the next guy, the highest priced guy, is Duke Johnson, and Kamara is obviously far and away the best running back on this slate. He's an elite talent. He's going to get plenty of work in this offense, especially with Mark Ingram gone. Not to say Lat Murray won't see the ball any, but still, Kamara should definitely get an upgrade with Ingram being gone, as Ingram is a better runner than Murray is. He's heavily involved in the passing game, and when he's in the open field, he's one of the hardest people to tackle in the NFL. Now, I know the Texans were stiff versus the run last season. They were first DVOA out of everybody, so they were the best DVOA run defense in the league. But don't forget, Clowney is gone, and he's one of the premier run stuffers in the entire league, so you have to downgrade their numbers from last year. And I know Kamara isn't like a traditional bell cow back where he gets like 20, 30 touches a game. I mean, he still gets 20 touches, but he's very efficient with his touches, and this offense is elite, so his touches are worth more than most players' touches in different offenses. So definitely love Kamara. I think he's the lock of the slate. Then the next guy I like is Josh Jacobs at 5,000. He seems like a logical RB2 option, given the fact he has a firm hold as the Raiders bell cow back. The rookie from Alabama looks to be in line for a decent-sized workload. With the loss of Antonio Brown, there will be also more targets to go around, and more than likely a dependency on establishing Jacobs in the run game early and often, and you should also see some work in the passing game as well. Denver was middle of the road versus the run last season, but I like the price point of Jacobs on this slate for the amount of touches he's going to get. The next guy I want to talk about is Phillip Lindsay, who's priced $200 more than Jacobs. He's my third option at running back, and the only concern here is that he will be in a more even split than it was last year with Royce Freeman. But Lindsay will get the work through the air, which boosts his floor for fantasy purposes and gives him a higher ceiling as well. He was also a very good runner last year. I know he's small, but he's extremely fast, and he was very good last season. Oakland was not good versus the run last year either, as they were 22nd DVOA and allowed 26.2 points per game to the position. And the next guy I want to talk about is Duke Johnson. That's going to be it for the running backs. He's kind of an interesting play. He looked to have a 3-down role locked up before Hyde came in, so he's kind of in the same situation he was in Cleveland last season. But still, Duke is the most fantasy relevant back here in this game. Not in this game, for the Texans, I should say. Obviously, that's Kamara. But the Texans traditionally don't pass to the RBs a lot, but this is a great matchup for them to do so with Duke Johnson, as the Saints were 29th DVOA versus pass-catching running backs last season, which is near league worst. I prefer the safety of Jacobs at $1K cheaper, but if you want to get different from the Kamara-Jacobs chalk combo, then I don't have a problem with using Duke. Or if you want to use Kamara, Duke Johnson, and Josh Jacobs in a lineup, that's definitely doable too, as you have a flex option too. But he is my fourth option out of all the running backs, just because of his price. So if we're going to be building this lineup together, let's go with Kamara, as I think he's a lock, and then I really like that price point of Josh Jacobs, and then hopefully we can fit one of these running backs in the flex spot later on. So let's go into the receiver position, and we're going to start with DeAndre Hopkins at 8K. So in my opinion, you basically either have to pay up for either Thomas or Hopkins on the slate, as you're going to need the wide receiver one on one of these teams from this game. And Hopkins is arguably the best receiver in the game. I don't think a lot of people would have a problem with me saying that. And if we like Watson, we obviously like Hopkins. He draws a matchup versus the Saints, who were 22nd DVOA versus the pass last season and gave up 46.1 Draftkings points per game too, which is not very good at all. Thomas is a little cheaper, but Hopkins feels a little safer in my opinion, with the Saints' ability to go the other ways with the ball if they want to. And they have had games where Thomas doesn't make a huge impact and he kind of ruins your fantasy day, but he also has games where he blows up. So Hop will see Lattimore, which is not good either for his individual matchup, but I'm obviously going to give the advantage to Hopkins as he is matchup proof. Then next guy obviously is Michael Thomas. I'm not going to go too in-depth with him just because I like Hopkins more, but I can see myself playing Thomas just because of the extra value. It's also an easier individual matchup for Thomas, but the Texans as a whole were tougher versus the position than the Saints were to wide receivers. Still, if you need the extra savings with Thomas, he's an elite play in all formats in my opinion. And let's drop down here to Will Fuller, who is my favorite wide receiver play on the entire slate to start with, or actually one of my favorite plays on the entire slate just in general. With Lattimore all over Hopkins, Fuller draws a more favorable matchup versus Eli Apple, and when Fuller is healthy and Watson is the QB, Fuller eats. He's just been awesome. He just scores at a crazy pace, and no, it doesn't make sense, but that's just what happens. He's fast and can burn a defense, and he's Watson's guy. I mean, they just have a great connection together. And like I said, the Saints were bad versus wide receivers last season, and with Kiki looking shaky for this game, Fuller is my favorite player on this slate. And he's very cheap at $5,300, so he's one of the locks on the slate for me. If he has a bad game, whatever. I just don't see it happening, though. I mean, he's not going to be sneaky by any means, but definitely one of the guys I want to lock in. So I like Will Fuller a lot. And the next guy I want to talk about is Tyrell Williams at $4,400. So he's the last guy of interest here for the wide receiver position, and he's a pretty easy choice considering the price. With AB gone, he's the de facto number one for the Raiders, and he's priced as if AB was going to take all the targets, which he was when they made out these salaries. But now that he's gone, so this is just a plug-and-play at this price tag. He's a deep play threat, and really he's not a bad receiver by any means. We just have to hope Carr can connect with him, as we know Derek Carr cannot throw a deep ball very well. This is not a good matchup, but at this price and the decent volume he should see, I think we have to take it. So, let's see. I'm not sure exactly if we're going to be able to fit in Hopkins yet, so let's just plug in Williams for now, and we're going to put in Will Fuller, and then we'll see who can fit at the end after we make this lineup, and hopefully we can afford one of the big guys, because if not, I think we're going to have to restructure this. So, let's just hope that works out. So, let's go on to the tight end position now. And up top, we have Jared Cook, and like at the quarterback position, I think there's only two ways to go at tight end. So we'll start with Jared Cook, and he's my number one, just from a projection standpoint. Houston was not good versus the tight end position last season, as they were 23rd DVOA and allowed over 15 points per game to the position. Now, I will say they will probably be better this season versus tight end, as they added a good coverage safety in Tishawn Gibson, who only allowed 0.8 yards per route covered last season. But still, a breeze tight end always has value, and if you can afford him, I definitely don't mind him at all. So I do like Jared Cook. Then we have Darren Waller at 3,400. With Brown gone, he's another beneficiary as he looks for an increase in his amount of targets. He's a really good athlete, and I think he can exploit his individual matchup here too versus Kareem Jackson. He's basically free, and if you aren't spending up for Cook, then I would go with Waller, and I really have no interest in Noah Fant or Josh Hill or any of these guys. So it's either Cook or Waller for me, and that's pretty much what everyone else is going to do as well. Then at defense, well, let's just plug in Jared Cook, and if we can't afford one of the big receivers with Jared Cook, then we will restructure. But then for defenses, it's really between two teams. It's either the Broncos or the Raiders for me, as the Vegas total is much lower in this game. I really don't see any path for success from a defense in the other game unless the Saints at home just are too much for Watson, but I really don't think they will be. So the Broncos are the favorites, but not by much. And I will say the Raiders are only 2,300, and they're at home, and they're not that much of underdogs, so I don't mind going with them if you really want to save. But I think the Broncos are the safer choice, so we'll just plug them in. And this gives us 5,800 remaining per player, so let's see what we can do. So if we put Michael Thomas in, that leaves us 3,800. Really don't want to play two tight ends, so let's go with Waller at tight end and see what that gives us, because I'd like to get Phillip Lindsay in. And at 5,300, we can fit Phillip Lindsay in, so I actually like that a lot better. So that would leave, this is just a generic lineup. I built it on the fly, guys. So that's Deshaun Watson, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Terrell Williams, Will Fuller, Michael Thomas, Darren Waller, Phillip Lindsay, and the Broncos D. I like that a lot, actually. And I know we have a couple guys versus the Broncos D, but it's not like we can't avoid everybody versus our defense on such a small slate, and the Broncos are the number one defense on the slate, in my opinion. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for the video. I hope it was helpful for you guys. I actually am looking forward to this slate. It should be a pretty fun slate, in my opinion. Not two good games. There's a really good game. There's kind of a disappointing game, but there's some decent fantasy options on there as well. It would have been more fun if Antonio Brown was playing, but I think we're all kind of excited for him to be on the Patriots more so anyway. So hope you guys had a fantastic main slate today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you'd like access to that NFL sheet, links in the description below. It's pretty cheap. And remember, leave a like, and I'll see you guys next video, and best of luck.